everybody, welcome back to Matero Productions. Today, I thought I'd talk about the history of one of my favorite game franchises of all time, Super Smash Bros. This will be a bit of a longer video, so sit back, grab a snack, relax, and listen to me yap about Smash Bros for 10 minutes. The original Super Smash Bros was released for the Nintendo 64 on January 1st, 1999 in Japan, and April 26th for the same year for North America. It was developed by HAL Laboratory, who also created Kirby and Earthbound. The lead designer of the game, Masahiro Sakurai, is best known for the Super Smash Bros. And Kirby series. But before we start talking about Smash Bros., we have to talk about the whole reason why Smash even exists. So, let's talk about Dragon King, the fighting game. Dragon King was supposed to be the first game in a brand new fighting game series created by Sakurai and the late Satoru Iwata, who may he rest in peace. So, this started because Sakurai wanted to test out how a 4-person multiplayer fighting game would work, so he figured it out how to make his game work. However, during development, Sakurai felt that the characters in the game were boring and wanted them to have more depth. After all, it was going to be on a home console. After some time, a co-worker at HAL suggested that he use already popular Nintendo characters instead of making new ones. Sakurai didn't like this idea at first, but after making a demo, he loved it. So he took it to the higher-ups at Nintendo and they rejected it, stating that they didn't want their prized Nintendo characters fighting each other for no reason. So, a bit later, Iwata had to lie to Sakurai to get him to fully develop the game, and after the game was finished and Iwata suggested the name Super Smash Bros., they decided to try to convince the higher-ups again. And of course, this time, they agreed with him. And after a lot of time, work, and effort from Sakurai, he created the series that we all know and love today, Super Smash Bros. And surprisingly, the game was a huge hit, selling 5 million copies worldwide and became the 5th most sold game for the N64. IGN even gave the game an 8.5 out of 10 score. So, after the massive success from the original Smash Bros., Sakurai decided to make a sequel to the game, creating one of the most beloved Smash Bros. Games of all time, where some people still play it competitively to this day. It even went as far as people using GameCube controllers for Smash to this day with the most recent game. But we'll get back to that later. Anyways, with this game, the roster of characters, maps, and items all increased, along with Sakurai's fame. This game was, of course, Super Smash Bros. Melee. This came out on the GameCube, selling around 7 million copies, making it become the highest selling game for the GameCube. This game obviously had better graphics and more features since it was on a console with more storage and power. Now with 26 playable fighters, players had a bunch of more characters to choose from. I think this definitely helped build this game into the masterpiece it is, even if some of the fighters like Mr. Game & Watch are kinda random. Melee brought the Ice Climbers into the series, which was the first fighter that had 2 characters at once, so it was pretty cool for the players. Since the GameCube controller had more buttons, the Smash Melee had more attack mechanics than the first game. This game was definitely an improvement, getting an even better ratings than its previous game, with a 9.6 out of 10 on IGN and a 92 out of 100 on Metacritic. This Smash game was one of, if not the best Smash game ever. With that out of the way, we'll now move on to Super Smash Bros. Brawl, a much more disliked game from the previous ones. So, Brawl was on the loved console known as the Wii. This game increased the roster of players once more, making the new total 35 playable characters. In Smash Bros. Brawl, Pokemon Trainer was introduced, the first fighter that could switch the playable characters mid-game, with Squirtle, Ivysaur, and Charizard. Smash Bros. Brawl also was the first game to include third-party characters like Sonic and Snake. Brawl was also the first Smash game to introduce online play, a major feature. And another major feature introduced in Brawl that we all know are Final Smashes. Final Smashes are special moves that deal a ton of damage that you can only do if you break the Smash Ball. Every character has their own Final Smash with a cool animation. Brawl even included its own story mode called Subspace Emissary, where you and all the other Smash fighters have to defend their world from being destroyed from the evil being named Taboo. All of these new features and such gave the Smash series a whole new amount of ways to play and to increase its popularity. And even though it was controversial for people, it was cool to see Nintendo try something new with their series. It's just that there were some things in the game that made people upset about Super Smash Bros. Brawl. These things included random tripping, slower and choppier gameplay, and poor character balance. All these things made Smash Brawl be held back from its true capabilities, and even though Smash Brawl wasn't really liked, it was still a massive success with selling over 13 million copies. Moving on, now we can talk about Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U and 3DS, or most commonly called Smash 4. Weirdly, the games did not release at the same time. Smash for the 3DS came out on October 3rd, 2014, and Smash for the Wii U came out on November 21st of the same year. Smash for the Wii U also came out the same day as the first wave of Amiibos, which, by the way, I made a video on. You should check it out, it's pretty good. The cool thing about Smash for 3DS is that you could play Smash Bros. On the go instead of only at your house. Plus, with the 3DS, it had dual screens, so on the bottom screen it would show the fighters in the percentage. For the Wii U, you could look onto the gamepad instead of looking at the big screen if you didn't want to. A cool feature that was only for Smash 4 was that the 3DS could connect to the Wii U and act as a custom controller to play. Multiple could connect too. I honestly think that this feature was really cool, even though I've never actually used it. This feature of Smash sold pretty well, getting over 9.5 million copies sold for the 3DS and just under 5.5 million copies sold for the Wii U, because of how it was a low-selling console. In general, Smash 4 was awesome, really fun, and by this point of the series, the games were really popular, enjoyed by millions of people. Smash just started to get taken seriously by this point by a lot more people, and the fandom just kept growing. Smash for Wii U and 3DS were the first Smash games that I played. My dad taught me how to play on the Smash for the Wii U, and I fell in love with the game. Surprisingly, the games both got pretty good ratings, with the Wii U version getting 92 out of 100 on Metacritic and an 85 out of 100 for the 3DS. Now, onto Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, the most popular and most recent Smash Bros. Game that we play today. So, to start off, Smash Bros. Ultimate sold over 37.5 million copies, making it the best-selling fighting game in history. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Smash Ultimate also had the craziest DLCs, like Steve from Minecraft, which when it was announced, it literally broke Twitter because of how many people were posting about it. And other crazy DLCs like Piranha Plant, Hero from Dragon Quest, Pyra and Mythra from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and Sephiroth from Final Fantasy. Smash Ultimate also has the most moves for their characters, and Smash Ultimate has the ultimate roster of 89 characters in total. Get it? Ultimate? Yeah, sorry, that wasn't funny. Anyways, it's the most competitive and considered the best Smash game in the series, but some still say Melee's better. That's everything for this video. I love talking about Smash Bros, so that's why this one's a bit longer. If you're still here, thank you, and please consider liking and subbing, or doing one, because when I hit my milestone of 200 subscribers, I'm going to have a retro game live stream and games that you guys pick from my collection. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want, check out my other videos. Have a good rest of your day or night. Bye!